In 2003, a mountaineering couple disappeared in the Pyrenees, challenging an unexplored mountain. The journey, which was supposed to be a historic achievement, became one of the mountain's greatest mysteries. Leaving no trace, their absence raised more questions than answers. What really happened in that isolated and treacherous region? If you're curious to discover the truth behind this mystery, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to follow this and other incredible stories. The loss of a loved one is never easy to digest, but when it involves a tragedy involving a mountain expedition where the immensity of nature becomes a silent and relentless character, the pain is amplified. For the families of the mountaineering couple, the despair was even deeper as they dealt with uncertainty, silence, and the absence of any concrete answers. The couple's parents, in particular, found themselves in a situation many might consider unthinkable. How to cope with the loss of their young, daring adult children, who simply disappeared into a remote, wild place. The void left by this absence rippled through their lives in a way words couldn't capture. During the first days, weeks, and even months after the disappearance, there was a faint hope that perhaps their children were simply taking refuge in some secluded place, waiting for the right moment to return. But as time passed, this hope turned to anguish. The pain of doubt became unbearable, for what could one expect in a setting where nature seemed to have swallowed those who dared challenge its grandeur? The search for the couple took an arduous and never-ending turn. As the years passed, the rescue teams, initially full of hope, became disheartened. The lack of concrete clues and the inability to penetrate the most dangerous areas of the mountain created a sense of helplessness. What was once a rescue operation became a directionless endeavor. Local authorities, unable to cope with the enigma of their disappearance, began to make assumptions, some even far from reality. Had the couple gotten lost due to a fatal mistake? Or, as many believed, had the impossible happened, a tragedy, on an insurmountable mountain with no real explanation? No matter how much friends and family tried to find a logical explanation, the weight of uncertainty weighed heavily on their minds. For their closest friends, who knew the couple's fearless spirit, there was the pain of silence. It was an even deeper suffering because no one knew for sure if there was anything that could be done to find what was left of their loved ones. A deep abyss of unanswered questions remained between them. For years, every birthday, every Christmas, was a constant reminder of their loss. Nothing was the same. Life went on with a shadow hanging over everyone, especially their parents and close friends. And even as they questioned the hope of some miracle, one thing was clear. Nature, in its immensity, had become an insurmountable wall for the feelings that remained. Amidst this grief, a feeling of helplessness grew. There was no longer room for easy answers. The disappearance was not just a tragedy. It was an open wound in the souls of those who loved the couple most. And so, day after day, the emptiness created by the loss became their most constant companion, more so than any person or physical memory that might remain. The mystery seemed to only grow stronger with each passing day as the years passed, like an invisible shadow following family and friends. The pain, now chronic, was punctuated only by those rare moments of clarity that emerged, like flashes of memory of happier times and adventures lived. The idea that something might be lost in the mountains seemed the only thought that could fill, even if only for a moment, the hole in their hearts. When a case drags on for so long, the internal questioning becomes unbearable. Could what we fear most actually be reality? This is what kept hammering at the family's minds. In the absence of clear answers, the gaps multiplied. like an uncontrollable current sweeping away everything in its path. The disappearance gradually transformed into a story whose happy ending no one knew. Now, the memory of a fearless couple in love with the mountains became an unresolved question, a distant echo from the Pyrenees. But for those left behind, this echo didn't mean the end. The mystery was still alive, waiting for something that could change everything. The question would never go away. Where, exactly, were they? And what would happen if the silence of the mountains were finally broken by a sound, by a clue, by something that brought an answer, however bitter, to the despair that consumed those left behind? In 2023, 20 years after their disappearance, the story of the mountaineering couple seemed lost in the shadows of uncertainty. The mystery surrounding the event had only grown with time, without any concrete clue that could finally clarify what happened on that Pyrenees mountain. But, as with every great mystery, life always seems to offer a last gasp of hope, and that's exactly what happened. A clue no one expected emerged almost unexpectedly, turning everything upside down. The discovery came about when a team of researchers, tasked with mapping rock formations in the mountains for a new geological project, analyzed satellite images of the region. While analyzing remote areas, an imaging specialist, while enlarging one of the most recent photos, noticed something peculiar. In a part of the mountains where the couple had last been seen, a rock formation appeared to have been disturbed. This disturbance, though subtle, suggested that some sort of recent activity had occurred in the area, something that shouldn't have been there. The terrain, seemingly untouched for decades, looked different. This first clue could have been easily ignored like so many others over the years. But experts, attentive to the small detail, recognized the possibility that the climbers had left some trace, some sign, some indication of where they might have gone after disappearing. The images, though enigmatic, showed marks that could have been tracks or even signs of an improvised camp, suggesting that the couple had perhaps remained there longer than previously thought. And this small sign was enough to reignite the investigation. The impact of this discovery was immediate. For the couple's family, who had lived through years of uncertainty and grief, this clue brought renewed hope. The possibility that the couple had made an important discovery, or even taken shelter in an unknown location, opened a new line of investigation. But what truly made this clue so valuable was the fact that the region in question was in an extremely difficult-to-access area, where few expeditions had been conducted since the couple's disappearance. The impression was clear. There was something there, something that could reveal their fate. With the emergence of this new clue, the disappearance story took on a new layer. What had previously seemed like a mere fatal error on a perilous journey now became a mystery to be solved. It wasn't just a case of a lost couple anymore. There was the possibility that the disappearance was linked to something more complex, something that could involve geological discoveries, the secrets of the mountain, or even matters beyond what authorities had initially considered. And it was at this point that the investigation began to take a new direction. The search for answers resumed vigorously, but now with a solid foundation to justify the work. Geology experts, experienced climbers, and even former members of previous expeditions were called in to help interpret the images and explore the area indicated by the clue. The terrain that would now be explored was beyond most known routes, and the weather conditions were often treacherous. But the excitement of finally having a clue was so strong that no one hesitated to face the mountain's challenges. The twist began to intensify as new analysis of satellite and drone imagery began to reveal more details of what lay hidden deep within the mountain. The tracks visible in the images seemed to align with one of the couple's last communications, a message they had sent to a close friend shortly before they disappeared. The words were incomplete, suggesting something abrupt had interrupted the communication. Many believed the couple had been lost in a storm, but the new discoveries suggested something more had happened. Perhaps as they neared the summit, they had encountered something that altered the course of the expedition, something so important that the mountain's history could be rewritten. But the biggest shock was yet to come. As researchers delved deeper into the images, one detail caught their attention: a rock formation with unusual characteristics. What appeared to be an area difficult for the climbers to access turned out to be a passage, albeit hidden by nature, that led to a cave, or at least the opening of a natural tunnel. The evidence suggested that, before disappearing, the couple might have discovered a secret path or an unknown natural structure, something that seemed to have been hidden in plain sight, a discovery that could possibly have been the catalyst for the expedition's tragic end. At this point, the theory that the disappearance was a simple accident began to crumble. New evidence, combined with meticulous study of weather conditions and testimonies from other climbers, began to suggest that the couple had ventured into a region of the mountain where no other climber had ventured before. And perhaps what they found there was more than just an unknown route. It may have been a discovery that led them to a fatal fate. Satellite images clearly showed the rock formation and the surrounding area, but field confirmation was lacking. Now the researchers knew they had to go there. The clues were finally coming together, and no matter how extreme the conditions, the expedition had to happen. The risk of landslides, unexpected storms, and freezing temperatures weren't enough to discourage those who were finally so close to a long-awaited truth. This new chapter in the investigation not only renewed hope in the hearts of those waiting for answers, but also increased the complexity of the case. Now, no one could simply claim the couple had disappeared by accident. Something else was at play, something much bigger. And the search was about to reach a critical point. What did they really find in that remote region of the Pyrenees? Could the initial clue, this simple alteration in the satellite imagery, reveal the mountain's greatest secret? The investigation into the disappearance of the mountaineering couple, revived by the discovery of satellite imagery, took a decisive but equally challenging turn. Now, the search was far from being a simple search for answers. What once seemed like a closed case, shrouded in mystery and speculation, had become a puzzle of greater proportions. Reopening the investigation brought to light new questions, new clues, and perhaps the key to a definitive solution to the case. But as discoveries began to emerge, it became clear that the challenges went far beyond human comprehension. The first major discovery was the analysis of satellite imagery, which indicated a disturbed rock formation. While this rekindled hope, the real work began when experts began examining the terrain and comparing these images with the couple's last communications. What appeared to be a simple change in the terrain revealed more than that. It indicated a possible route, as yet unexplored. The couple, previously reported missing, may have ventured into a place no other climber had dared to go. The rock formation, it seemed, was a natural but extremely difficult to access path, which they could have discovered during their expedition. This type of analysis, which could easily be overlooked, became crucial for researchers. The meticulous study of satellite and drone images revealed for the first time just how complex the region where the couple disappeared was. The mountain, besides being extremely challenging, hid details that had otherwise gone unnoticed. But experts, comparing satellite photos with old maps of the region, noticed that a rock formation appeared to have been altered recently. This new clue suggested that the couple, when lost, had found something there. A secret hidden in the mountains, a cavity, or a possible refuge that could have been the place where the couple became trapped, or even where they made an important discovery. With this new line of investigation, the teams began focusing on analyzing the couple's communications prior to their disappearance. The last message, sent by one of the climbers to a close friend, spoke of a discovery that would change everything. "We're almost there," the message said, followed by a warning that weather conditions were worsening. The message made no sense to the researchers at the time. After all, what did the couple mean by "we're almost there"? Almost to the top of the mountain? Or to something more? This message, previously ignored, now seemed to hold more significance than any other detail. It indicated that the climbers were close to finding something big, something that could have changed the fate of the expedition. The key lay in the last word of the message: almost. What did that mean? Almost at the top of the mountain? Almost on a new route? Or perhaps almost at something even the investigators hadn't imagined? The enigmatic content of this message led investigators to revisit all their theories about the Gaia disappearance, now with a new perspective. The possibility that the couple had found something important in the mountains, something that might have changed the course of the expedition, grew stronger with each new detail analyzed. But there was still a gap between what the images showed and what the climbers actually found. This question mark led to a new phase of the investigation. Now, with the confirmation of the presence of a suspicious rock formation, the team of investigators, composed of experienced climbers, geologists, and other experts, began studying the terrain in detail. They spent weeks analyzing the site with drones, capturing high-resolution images, and searching for any traces that might have been left by the climbers. The site was difficult to access, with canyons and areas where snow and ice formed thick, treacherous layers. It was the type of terrain where any clue could be the key to solving the case. Over time, researchers uncovered more details that pointed to the possibility that the couple was much closer to a major find than previously thought. Small tracks in the snow, initially dismissed as the result of weather conditions, began to gain relevance. The marks seemed to indicate that the couple had attempted to climb the rock formation, but, for some reason, were unable to complete the expedition. The logic seemed simple. The couple was on a remote mountain, where few expeditions had been conducted. If they had truly found something important, they were likely in a place no one else had reached. But as investigators explored deeper into the region, new questions began to emerge. The weather conditions, with violent winds and unexpected blizzards, made the expeditions even more difficult. Furthermore, there was no clear explanation for the couple's disappearance. Why hadn't they returned, even after apparently making a significant discovery? That was the big question. The disappearance was no longer a simple navigational error or a tragedy caused by a storm. Something more had happened, something beyond the scope of traditional explanations. As clues mounted, theories began to diverge. Some believed the couple were caught in a sudden storm and trapped in the mountains, unable to return. Others suggested the couple had discovered something so important that they felt compelled to continue their journey, but were unable to find their way back. There were also those who believed the discovery had to do with a secret held by the mountain, something beyond simple geology. But doubts began to grow. What really happened there, on that expedition, where the limits of human exploration were so tragically challenged? The researchers were finally ready to investigate the area more intensively. The new satellite imagery revealed more detail than had previously been visible. However, the challenging terrain, the harsh weather, and limited time still posed obstacles to overcome. Nothing was guaranteed, but with each step, the truth seemed closer, even if it was a disconcerting and difficult truth to accept. With each discovery, the mystery deepened. The true story of what happened to the couple was closer than ever, but the pieces of this puzzle still refused to fit together clearly. What they were about to find in the mountains could change everything, or once again, it could reveal a vast void with more questions than answers. The investigation into the disappearance of the mountaineering couple was marked by a series of meetings and interviews with key individuals who could somehow shed light on what really happened in the Pyrenees Mountains. Among these individuals were climbers who, in the years following their disappearance, had conducted expeditions in the same region and were somehow connected to the events surrounding the disappearance. Between accounts and theories, what seemed like a search for answers actually became an increasingly complex investigation with more questions than solutions. The first person interviewed was a veteran climber who had been in the area shortly after the disappearance. He was known for his expertise climbing dangerous terrain and had a reputation for never leaving a mystery unsolved. His interview was initially informative, but something in his account raised eyebrows. He mentioned, almost casually, that he had seen something peculiar while in the vicinity of the area where the couple disappeared. "I wasn't in a position to investigate, but I remember seeing marks in the snow. They looked fresh, but no one listened to me," he said in a distant tone. To investigators, this sounded like an important clue, but the climber seemed hesitant, as if he were holding something back. This small detail put the investigation team on alert. How could an experienced climber have overlooked something so crucial, especially in such an important area? Interviews with other members of past expeditions also revealed alarming accounts. A group of climbers, who were in the vicinity of the same mountain months after the couple's disappearance, mentioned that there was something strange about their experience. The area had a very different feel. "We couldn't find our way back to where we started. The snow was different, it seemed to have been disturbed. It was as if someone had been there before and moved the rocks," one of the expedition members reported. For the research team, these kinds of reports could not be ignored. Coincidences were piling up, and the idea that the couple might have encountered something mysterious was growing stronger. What was most striking was the behavior of some of the members of the previous expeditions. Despite reports of encounters with extreme conditions, such as storms and blizzards, something seemed off about their stories. One of the climbers had gone on a later expedition, a few months after the disappearance, and he was convinced he had found the same trail the couple had taken. But when pressed for specific details about the location and the signs he had seen, he seemed uncomfortable, hesitant in his answers. What he described as a discovery made no sense, as the area was inaccessible, and he had changed the location where he claimed to have made this observation. When the team asked for more information about his own expeditions and the conditions at the site, he became increasingly evasive. These incomplete answers raised suspicions. If something had been found on the mountain, they might have been the first to know, but their reactions raised doubts about the veracity of his accounts. Another critical point was the conflicting testimony about the couple's presence in the final hours before their disappearance. While most climbers and experts believed the couple had encountered extreme weather conditions and become lost, a darker theory began to gain traction. Some team members began to hypothesize that the couple might have encountered something dangerous in the mountains, perhaps something beyond what any climber could expect. Experts began to question the conditions in which the couple had found themselves. If they had been lost in a storm, why didn't their last messages mention any signs of difficulty? The final message simply said, "We're almost there," with no reference to any problems. This seemingly simple detail raised a question. What if the couple had been involved in something other than simply navigation or weather? What could be lurking in the mountains that kept the couple silent until the end? Tensions began to rise among the researchers, especially as some members of the original expedition began to suspect the actions of others involved. Information began to circulate suggesting that not all climbers in the region had been completely transparent about what they had encountered in the mountains. Reports of a strange presence nearby further fueled suspicion. Were these people trying to hide something? Some of the more experienced and reserved climbers seemed to have something to hide, something they were unwilling to reveal. The atmosphere of distrust grew, and now, more than ever, the research seemed to have reached a tipping point. In an environment where truths are often masked by personal and professional fears, the pressure to get real answers was greater than ever. The real dilemma lay in the difficulty of separating theories from reality. For some, the couple was still just another victim of a treacherous mountain, with no more mysteries than any expedition tragedy could bring. But for others, the discoveries and reports of strange experiences in the mountains indicated something deeper and darker to the case. Could the couple have stumbled upon a truth no climber should know? What if, in their search, they had accidentally awakened something they shouldn't have? These were the questions that began to haunt investigators. As more key characters entered the story, each with their own versions of the events, in the end, the search for answers was far from simple. What seemed like a normal expedition had turned into a web of secrets, lies, and endless mysteries. As the investigation gained new layers and more information emerged, the case of the disappearance of the mountaineering couple became increasingly complex. Conflicting testimonies, disconcerting clues, and unexpected discoveries began to create a tense scenario. However, the real shock was yet to come. The revelations that would change everything. Something had been hidden in the mountains, and the truth was about to come to light, but not without causing major confrontations. The investigation, which had previously followed a line of technical and scientific analysis, now faced a more human question: who was really telling the truth? As researchers began to question those involved more deeply, the answers became increasingly evasive. Those connected to the couple in previous expeditions began to withdraw, and trust among the members of the investigation was tested. Something was being hidden, and it was clear to everyone involved. The breaking point came during a series of confrontations between investigators and members of past expeditions. During a tense meeting, one of the climbers, visibly nervous, blurted out a seemingly insignificant sentence that set the room ablaze. Maybe the couple found something that shouldn't have been found. The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. This simple comment brought a new perspective to the case, suggesting that the disappearance had not been caused by a natural tragedy, but by something more sinister, something that not even the climbers involved in the expedition wanted to reveal. The researchers, now faced with a tangible clue, began to delve deeper into their questions. What, after all, could be so dangerous that it needed to be hidden? Why did some members of previous expeditions seem so uneasy when confronted with the discovery? This led to a new hypothesis. What if the couple had found something that should have remained hidden? Something that for some could have posed a risk not only to the climbers, but also to everyone following in their footsteps. Tensions rose when one of the more experienced climbers was called in for another round of questioning. His demeanor, once open and collaborative, was now riddled with contradictions. When pressed about the details of a visit to a specific spot in the mountains, he hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. A simple misinterpretation could have been his last chance to remain silent. But the interrogation was relentless. "What really happened in that area?" one of the investigators asked, staring at him. "What did you find there? What were the couple trying to show us?" The answer was disconcerting. He began to talk about a discovery that had been made in one of the most remote corners of the mountain, but the hesitation in his words indicated he was leaving something out. "We found something," he said, his voice breaking. "But we can't say for sure what it was, and I can't say anything more about it. We've made our expeditions, but we haven't been back there." The room fell silent. What did he mean? The couple had found something, and now it was as if this discovery were something forbidden, a secret guarded by the mountains, perhaps more deadly than any storm or climbing hazard. These revelations began to shape a new line of investigation, a more personal, more intimate one. The expedition members began to question not only the couple's actions, but also themselves. What were they hiding? What were the real motives behind their journey? They were searching for a new route, but also for something more, something that could have changed their fate forever. The most dramatic confrontation occurred when, in a closed meeting, a former expedition member, who had remained silent throughout the investigation, finally revealed what he knew. He confirmed that the couple had discovered something, a rock formation, a hidden entrance leading to a cave. However, what most shocked investigators was what he said next. They weren't there just to climb the mountain. They were after something that, if revealed, would change everything. "I don't know exactly what it was, but they were so certain they would find something that they risked more than anyone should have. But they never came back to tell." This account turned the case upside down. Investigators, now convinced there was something much bigger at play, began focusing on this new lead, the rock formation and the hidden cave. There was a truth being eluded, a secret that could have changed everything for the couple. The idea that the mountain wasn't just a natural challenge but held something unknown began to gain traction. The couple hadn't disappeared by accident. They were searching for something, and possibly they had found something they shouldn't have. This was the breaking point. The answers that had previously been evasive now began to make sense, and as the investigation progressed, more confrontations occurred. Those involved became increasingly defensive, as if trying to protect something greater than their own lives. Silence became a powerful weapon, and secrets began to be forcibly unearthed. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, what had once seemed like a simple disappearance case now became a story of forbidden discoveries, ancient mysteries, and secrets held by the mountains. The truth was getting closer, but as it became clearer, the risks of revealing it only increased. The climax of the investigation into the disappearance of the mountaineering couple was about to arrive, and the fate of the case would become clear to all involved. After years of searching and conflicting theories, the truth began to emerge from the shadows of the mountain, revealing not only the mysteries of nature but also the deepest human dilemmas. The decisive moment arrived with the organization of a new expedition to explore the area where the most recent clues had been found. The Pyrenees Mountains, which had previously seemed merely the scene of a tragedy, now became the stage for a final attempt to uncover what had truly happened. The expedition was assembled, comprised of a select group of experts, seasoned climbers, and family members of the missing, all hoping that at last, an answer was within reach. But as always, nature posed its own challenges. Sudden storms, biting cold, and treacherous trails were only part of what awaited them. As the team advanced, each step was a confrontation with the forces of nature, and also with the ghosts of the past. Anxiety hung in the air, and each researcher knew that whatever they found there would change everything. The mood was heavy, and the tension was palpable. With each steep descent and each steep ascent, the anticipation of something extraordinary grew. The cave, the rock formation, the point where the clues converged, all led to a place where, finally, the secrets held by the mountain could be revealed. The tension grew even more intense when, after a long journey through extreme conditions, the team reached the area indicated by the satellite images. It was a steep rock formation with a narrow, hidden entrance, as if the mountain were protecting something within itself. They were finally standing before what could be the key to solving the mystery of the disappearance. But something was wrong. The entrance seemed eerily silent, with no clear trace of anyone who had been there recently. What should have been the location of the clues seemed immovable, as if nature had done everything it could to hide any sign of life. But deep within the cave, a small, almost imperceptible opening took the team to a new level of discovery. It was there, in that remote part of the mountain, where the most extreme conditions threatened everyone's safety, that the first true evidence that the couple had made it this far was found. Among the rocks, camouflaged by the snow, lay a partially frayed strand of rope that had been used as a climbing aid. The strand was attached to a rock formation, marked with signs of recent wear. This meant the couple had indeed made it this far, and more importantly, that they had left this sign as a clue before disappearing. The confirmation that the couple had explored this place was like a sharp blade cutting through the darkness of mystery. The group prepared to descend deeper into the cave, believing they were finally close to discovering the truth. But before they could continue, a scream echoed through the silent caverns. One of the expedition members had found something. Not human bodies, but something that made everyone's hearts race. Among the rocks and snow lay evidence of a struggle for survival, burn marks, remnants of fire, and signs that something or someone had recently passed through. But what shocked everyone most was what was hidden among the remains. A backpack that had belonged to the couple, abandoned and partially destroyed. Inside were some personal belongings and, to everyone's surprise, the map of the region, with notes indicating a much deeper and more hidden part of the mountain, far from the originally planned route. These discoveries, while far from conclusive, raised more questions than they answered. What had the couple found in that remote region? Why, after so long, did the truth seem even more elusive? The backpack and the objects left behind indicated the couple had made a discovery that took them deeper than any climber would dare. But what really happened to them? The new clues were just another reminder that, despite all the progress, there was still much more hidden in those mountains than anyone imagined. With the scenery becoming increasingly dramatic and the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, the final leg of the expedition revealed the ultimate confrontation between the investigators and the mountain. They were closer to the answer, but the truth was hidden among the rocks and the silence of the mountains. At the same time, a family member, the brother of one of the climbers, had a terrifying vision. He began to understand what had really happened on that mountain, but was wary of revealing what he thought was the truth. That last night, as the wind bit his skin and the cold gripped him, he approached one of the more experienced investigators and, with a trembling voice, whispered, "I know what happened. They didn't disappear by accident. They were after something, and now I know where this will lead." The tension had never been so palpable. From that moment on, everyone knew the expedition, the search, and the mystery were about to reach their climax. The truth was before them, but it would be more devastating than anyone could have imagined. After years of speculation and seemingly endless searches, the truth finally began to emerge in the Pyrenees Mountains. The expedition that had organized to explore the area indicated by the uncovered clues had the sole purpose of discovering what really happened to the mountaineering couple. The search for answers was now about to reach its conclusion. With the couple's backpack found, along with personal belongings and the map with notes, the connection between the couple and what they had discovered on the mountain became clearer. But the real discovery came when the team managed to reach a deeper point in the cave, where evidence of the struggle for survival and the tracks left in the snow intertwined with a discovery as grand as it was fatal. There, deep within the mountain, lay the couple's secret, an unknown geological formation bearing traces of mining and rare materials. The couple hadn't lost their way. They had found something, and that something could have been the reason for their death. The solution to the mystery wasn't simple. The investigators, now with all the pieces of the puzzle, were able to conclude that the couple, in their search for a new route and discovery, had stumbled upon an ancient secret. While exploring the cave, they discovered deposits of valuable materials that could alter the course of many fields of knowledge. However, this discovery put them at risk, perhaps due to the very nature of what they had found, or perhaps due to their intention to explore something that should have remained hidden. Justice for the couple's family, however, did not come without pain. The revelation that their deaths were not a natural accident, but rather the result of a preventable discovery, carried a significant emotional toll. From then on, the Pyrenees Mountains, once seen as the scene of a tragedy, became a symbol of loss and sacrifice. Justice was ultimately achieved, but at a high emotional cost for all involved. The case was closed, but the feelings of pain, longing, and bewilderment at what was lost would remain, like a scar that would never fade. The outcome of the case brought a mixture of relief and sadness. After years of uncertainty, the family finally got the answers they'd been searching for, but the revelations were so profound that the relief was accompanied by renewed grief. The mountaineering couple, upon finding something that could change the course of history, paid the highest price: their own lives. The mountain, which once seemed merely the setting for a daring journey, was now seen as the place where dreams turned to tragedy. The couple's legacy, however, was not erased by the resolution of the case. Their courage, pursuit of the unknown, and passion for exploration remain an example of bravery and sacrifice. The mystery surrounding their expedition served to remind everyone that behind every great adventure lies immeasurable risk, but also the opportunity to discover what lies beyond what meets the eye. As family members reflected on the impact of everything that had happened, the Pyrenees Mountains continued to hold their secrets. The climbers' memories became part of the region's legacy, which still echoed with the memory of their sacrifice. The end of the search did not bring the complete closure everyone had hoped for, but instead sparked a profound reflection on the limits of human exploration and the price of the pursuit of knowledge. The mountain, with its silent immensity, continued to be a symbol of mystery and courage, and the couple who disappeared there would always be remembered as those who dared to go further, to the point of no return.